What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Hope everyone is having a blessed day. This is going to be part 2 of the Lincoln Ranger 300 project. What I'd like to do today, I'd like to get the engine up to operating temperature, and then I would like to do a compression test, and if it's in the acceptable range for compression, we're going to do a coolant system flush, and we're going to do an oil and oil filter change. So let's get after it. Alright, so I went ahead, I got the jump pack hooked up, and just to show you guys, it is a little chilly out today, so we'll see if the jump pack has enough juice on. Let's give a little glow plug action. All right. I do not think it's going to have what it takes to get this done. Alright, so the jump pack let us down, so I got the jumper cables hooked up to the Duramax. Let's see if it'll crank now. Alright, let's give it a little more glow plug action. Alrighty, now that we got the engine up to temp, we're going to go ahead and pop out the glow plugs and do the compression test. Alright, this is the compression test kit that we are going to be using. It is from Harbor Freight. It is their master compression tester kit. I apologize for interrupting the video. I just wanted to let you guys know before we get into the compression testing phase what kind of numbers I was working with when I initially bought the machine. So when I went to look at the machine, I took the compression testing kit with me, and I believe it measured right around 220, 230 per cylinder. So according to Kubota's manual, the acceptable range for the engine is 327 psi. Anything below that, and that means you're going to have to replace some piston rings or possibly something with your valves, something like that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that was the number when I bought the machine. So stick around to see if those compression numbers stay the same or if they increase. Thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of the video. As you can see, this comes with a lot of different adapters and a little list that tells you what the adapters go to and what you can use them on. So we're going to need the number 2 glow plug adapter and our gauge. So let's go ahead and get the cylinder 1 glow plug out and see what kind of compression we're making. Alright, so in order for us to get to the glow plugs, we'll need to pop this thermostat wiring out of the way. Let it hang out over here. And then you have a 7mm right here, another 7mm over here, and then a little thumb screw. And then you can pick this bar up and slide it out of the way. So let's get these two 7mm off. There's the right socket. They shouldn't be very tight. And let's see if we can, yep. There's that thumb screw. There's that thumb screw. And then there was our two 7mm. There's your glow plug power. And then there's your little bus bar. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that is what I'm going to call it. Then you're going to need a 10mm to get your glow plugs out. There is cylinder number 1 glow plug. Alright, here's our test adapter. Alright, so our test adapter is a little bit bigger, so it takes a 12mm. Alright, so we got our test adapter in. Let's get our gauge set up and let's see what cylinder number 1 has to offer. Alright. Make sure this guy is all the way down. If not, your engine will probably start. And then that wouldn't be good. So we're going to zip tie that stop lever, which pulls the fork and the lever all the way that way, which makes the pin on the pump go that way as well, which completely shuts off our fuel. Alright, now let's give her a few cranks. Would you look at that? We are about 370, 380-ish, cylinder 1. And while we have the glow plugs out, I want to show you guys a little trick. If you're curious as to whether your glow plug is working or not, you can hook a ground here on your jump pack, and then this stud should be your positive. I believe most, if not all, glow plugs ground through the body. Let's do it that way. And there you can see the glow plug, the tip of it. Pretty neat. Let's go ahead and remove the compression tester, throw this glow plug back in, and we'll test number 2. Cylinder 2 glow plug. Cylinder number 2 is about 350 psi. Cylinder 2, and right around 370, 380-ish. Alright. Same setup. Got the ground hooked right on the body where the threads are. And then we're just going to, as you can see, cylinder 2 glow plug works good as well. Let's go and remove the adapter and reinstall cylinder 2 glow plug, and then we'll rinse and repeat on number 3. Cylinder number 3, glow plug. Cylinder 3, right about 380. Let's go ahead and bench test cylinder number 3 glow plug. And it works. That's good. Alright, that number 3 or cylinder 3 glow plug bench tested good, so let's go ahead and get that back installed. Alright, so now we're going to get this little bus bar thrown back on. Alright, and we're going to get our middle thumb screw. Then our 2 little flange nuts on the ends. Then we got our 7mm. Before we get this far one tightened all the way down, we need to leave enough room to slip this under that nut. There we are. That way we can actually get power to our glue plugs. Alright, there's our glow plugs reinstalled with power. Now let's grab our thermostat wiring And bam. Just like that, we have that reinstalled. Alright, now that we have completed the compression test, we can take the zip tie off. Alright, so now that we know our compression is in the acceptable range, we're going to do an oil change and we're going to do a coolant flush. As well, I'm going to cut open the old oil filter to see if we have any metal shavings or anything like that we should be concerned about. So let's go ahead and start with the oil change. We are going to drain the engine oil. So I have here 11/16 combo wrench and some channel locks, because for some reason there's not just a nut on the end of this. It's a, I don't even know what you call that. There we go. We got that loose enough now. I'm going to drop this back through there so that we'll get a better flow. Figured it was going to drain faster than that, but no problem. Alright, while that is draining, next step is going to be to remove this oil filter. Alright, this guy is done draining, so let's go ahead and get the cap put back on. Oh crap. Just kidding. Let's just put oil all over the place. All right. Probably would have helped if I was going the right way. I don't know how I got in my head that I was going the right way to start, but sometimes we have our moments. There we go. Well, so about cutting that oil filter open, I do not think we are going to be doing that now. Before we get ahead of ourselves, I'm going to go ahead and write how many hours in the month and year on this. So we are currently sitting at 8,476.4 hours. That's how you do it. Just like that. Alright, so I'm going to get this mess cleaned up and get the filter surface cleaned up, and then I'll be right back. Alright, got our new oil filter. First step, we're just going to grab just a dab of that old oil Run it on that O-ring. There we go. That should be good. Next step, let's refill the engine with oil. Alright. Open up our oil fill, drop our funnel in. And then for this, we're going to be using Mobil Delvac Super 1540. According to spec, this engine should run 1030 or 1040, but I couldn't find any, so 1540 should be alright. Be just a little bit heavier. And it should take 5.4 quarts of oil.
It was at this moment that he knew. He
messed up. That was smart. Alright, so I have some of this T6 laying around. I think I have right about a quart in here. So we're going to throw it in here, and that would put us right about 5 quarts. I believe the spec on this engine is 5.4. So we're going to, after I put this oil in, we're going to crank it for a little bit with that fuel lever shut. So that way it won't start since I didn't prime that vertical filter. That'll let that filter prime. Let it build some oil pressure, and then we might let it run for just a little bit. Then we'll check the level and adjust accordingly. Looks like we are a hair above, which is fine, because like I said, I didn't prime that, I didn't prime the oil filter, so yeah. As you can see, we're right about here, so that will not be a problem at all. Alright, I'm back. I let the engine run for a little bit. And now we're going to check to see if we need to add any more oil. And would you look at that? Excellent. Right below the hole on the top. So we are going to stick with that. The next step on this project, we're going to flush the radiator. Hopefully, I'm going to flush the whole cooling system, but if not, at least the radiator. And then I have fresh antifreeze to go in there. Along with that, I'd also like to get a battery, because every time I've started it, I'm having to jump it off my truck. Along with that, when I'm jumping it, I'm not getting any sort of I guess, electronic feedback from anything, because I'm just using the power to crank over the starter. And after that, when I disconnect that, I mean, there's no more power going to anything. I mean, the engine works and I can see the generator part spinning, so hopefully the generator is working as well. But like I said, I don't really know as of now. But this is where I'm going to leave it for this evening. Hopefully tomorrow I'll tackle getting this and possibly getting a battery. So the next clip you guys will see is me starting on the cooling system or installing a battery. Alright, I'm back. It is the next day. We're going to start by installing a new battery and some new terminals. I got this. So that way when we're doing our electrical diagnostic work, we can just easily unhook and reconnect the battery. Got a group 35 battery. First order of business, we're going to get in here cleaned out. As you can see, definitely needs some work. As you can see, these battery terminals definitely need replaced. This one's got arc marks and it's all like welded and stuff like that. This one, the insulation isn't covering the wire all the way, so this one doesn't need replaced, but we're gonna go ahead and replace both of them anyway. Alright, I'm back. I got in here cleaned up decently. Not great, but it's better than it was. Alright, I'm going to start by replacing the positive terminal. So what we should need for this is a pair of diagonal cutters and a good utility knife and your new terminal. So the reason I'm doing it this way is so that when I peel back that insulation, I'm only taking just enough. That way we won't have a bunch of extra copper sticking out. Alright, so I got all of the insulation off and you can see we have a little bit of corrosion. So I'm just going to take a wire brush and I'm going to brush it off. Alright, so that looks a lot better. We're going to grab our wire and kind of twist it. That way it's nice and uniform. Then we're going to grab our battery terminal. And then this is a 11 millimeter. We're going to slide our battery cable into there. I'm not very satisfied with that fit, so I'm going to trim a little bit off of this end. Alright, let's see if the trimmed version fits a little better. There we go. That's exactly what I'm looking for. We're sitting just about flush in there, and that is going to come down right on that. Before you snug anything up, make sure you have your cable where you want it. And make sure it's snug. Give it a couple tugs. Make sure it's not going to fall out. And now we're good. Alright, so time for the negative side. Same procedure over here. We're going to line this up, figure out how much insulation we need to strip, score it all the way around, then slice it and slide it off. The neat thing about this terminal compared to the other one is our cable is going to hook in like that. And this, we can just loosen, just pull our cable off. So that way, when it's not in use, or if we're testing something and we need to unhook power and then reconnect, instead of having to loosen this up every single time, we can just loosen that up, slide up. Same thing here, looks like we have just, can't tell if that's corrosion or if it's just dirty, but we'll go ahead and brush that and then fit the terminal. Looks like we could go just a little bit longer on that one if we wanted to. But for now, I'm not going to worry about that, because we do have enough that this is clamping it. So that should be what we need, but we probably could if we really wanted to. Alright, let's get the battery thrown up in there. Whew, that is a tight fit. Alright, let's pop this cover off real quick. There we go. I just had to open that terminal up just a little bit. but it should be alright. Alright, I got my stubby ratchet in here. And this, for some reason, is a 12 mil instead of the 11, like the others, like those. Alright, so I'm gonna unhook this for now and put this on first. Alright, I got that put on there. Now let's snug it up. This one is fun. We gotta fish our socket through there. Alright, they are both on there. Let's go ahead and hook this end up there and see if we have power. Sorry, I couldn't get a good angle of that, but we have that hooked up now. We have both battery terminals hooked up. Let's see if we have power. Would you look at that? Excellent. So now here's the next question. Will it start? Let's give it some glow plug. There's a couple more things I'd like to do on the electrical side for this video. One of them is I'd like to tape this up for now. Still in that lug pretty good, but there's a bunch of copper coming out of it, which that's something that should be replaced soon. I'd also like to tie this ground back into this solenoid. So originally where all of these butt splices are, there used to be a connector, and the connector wasn't making very good contact, so we figured, hey, we'll just splice them together. The reason we did that is because this solenoid was getting warmer than what we thought it should be. So I would like to see if we can get this to function properly now that we have a battery. See if we can put it back in there and see if we can shut the engine off from the front panel instead of having to manually do that every single time. Alright, we're going to start with this. Alright, so that's good. This is the ground for the solenoid. So what I did, obviously I didn't finish what I was doing, but I hooked into that with another piece of wire and then ran that straight to the block. So we should have a good ground, because we thought that this was getting hot due to not having a good ground. So I'm just going to take some of the insulation off here, fold it, put a butt splice on that and splice it in to there. Alright, so we have that. So now we're just gonna do something like that. Alright, we got just enough wire in there. Like I said, most of this wiring for now is just temporary. Until I figure out that everything on this machine's working how it should be, I'm not going to dump a whole lot of money into making everything right for now. Alright. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly what we're looking for right there. These are the 5mm hex again. This one's a little bit of a booger to get to. It's back tight in here. Alright, let's tighten this side up a little bit. Make sure we seat it evenly. Don't need to be too incredibly tight. Here goes nothing. Let's give it a couple more seconds of glow plugs since it is pretty chilly today. Excellent. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the progress that we're making so far. Got the battery with new terminals hooked up. It's running good. Alternator's charging. We can actually start and stop the engine from the main panel, which is excellent. The next thing on our to-do list, we're going to flush the cooling system. I'm back. It's time to do the coolant flush. I have the coolant concentrate as well as the distilled water we're going to need. A bucket to drain the old coolant into, as well as a funnel and some pliers to open up the drain on the radiator. Alright, so the first step of the coolant flush, we're going to open up this drain valve. Okay. Alright, so I finally found a hose that fits on there good. So let's go ahead and open this again and hope we don't have any leaks. We're also going to go ahead and open up this top radiator cap, so that'll let it vent. Alright, so I did not expect for there to be much buildup in there, but since there is that buildup inside the top of this radiator, I'm going to pull off both this upper and lower radiator hose and see what kind of Hopefully we don't have any buildup in these. If we do, then we're going to have to do more than just like a drain and refill. We're going to have to put some sort of cleaner in this and get the engine back up to operating temperature, flush or drain it out, refill it, do that a couple times. But hopefully it'll just be the radiator, not the whole engine. There we go. You can definitely tell it's been a long time since this hose has been removed, if it's still got that pretty good indent from that clamp. That's not a good sign. My concern now is if that's what's going into the engine, that's going through your thermostat, that means we're going to have stuff in the block, so we're probably going to have to flush everything now. Alright, I'm having technical difficulties getting that top clamp off for now. As you can see, I got it kind of cockeyed, so I'll mess with that in here in a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and get this lower hose off. Yeah, that's what we don't want to see again. More of that sediment in that hose. About time I finally get that. Look at all that stuff in there. Next up on the list, I'm going to go ahead and clean up both of these hoses, just so I can double check and make sure that they are still usable. This one is a little bit questionable because of that cracking, but I'm going to clean it up and see if some of that cracking is just like surface or if it actually is deep and needs to be replaced. I have a solution here of warm water and just degreaser. So I'm going to go ahead and take these clamps off, and then we are going to get these hoses washed up. There's our lower radiator hose. And then here's our upper radiator hose. Alright, so I got upper and lower hose cleaned up as well as the clamps. And thankfully, this is not cracking. At least not what I would call cracking. That just these little like ridges, just from that being designed that way. If you pull it out, you don't see any cracking. You just see how it's been formed like that. So that is good news, because this is a $70 hose. So thankfully we can just slap this back on. before we go slapping any coolant or any of our hoses back on, I'm going to pull off this thermostat housing piece. I'm going to pop this off, pop out our thermostat, clean this piece up, put this back in without the thermostat, so that way whenever we go to flush everything, we'll just be flowing and we won't have to wait for it to get up to temperature, but we can just let it flow continuously. So let's go ahead and get this taken off. These are just 2 12 mils. There's that. There's our gasket on there. I'm going to go ahead and throw the top of this thermostat housing in our degreaser solution so it can soak, and then I'll scrub it and we can put it back on. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pop out the thermostat. There it is. Piece isn't an amazing shape, but we're going to go ahead and throw it back on. We're going to snug up one side, then we're going to snug up this other side, and then we'll tighten them down. That way it seats evenly. Alright, well, I got some bad news. While putting this back together, I noticed we have a little cut in it. I have no idea how that even happened. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, let's go ahead and get the upper hose thrown on, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with this. Alright, I'll get back to you guys whenever I get these on. Alright, so thankfully, even though that had that little cut in it, I was able to slice that hose back far enough and still have enough that it connects upright. I'll get back with you guys whenever I get this clamp on all the way. Alright, I got the upper radiator hose and clamps on, as well as the bottom. So the next step on this is going to be to fill with coolant flush, as well as some distilled water. So I'll get back with you guys whenever we do that. Got the cooling system flush. We're going to go ahead and pour all of this in, and then after that we're going to top the radiator off with distilled water, start it up, let the water pump run, and while it's running we're going to continue to add water until this is full. Alright, well I guess the radiator is full. Alright, so now we're going to start it up and let that water pump start pulling the water out of the radiator. And then we'll top this the rest of the way off. Alright, it's been a few days since I've added the coolant flush with the distilled water. I've been letting the engine run, letting that circulate, so let's go ahead and drain it out and see how much it cleaned out and how dirty the inside of the block and radiator are. Oh yeah, looks like it definitely did some cleaning. Still have some sediment left in the top. Now that has completely drained the radiator, we're going to refill with just distilled water and let the engine run, and then drain it and then refill it until it is completely clean. Alright, I'll get back with you guys whenever it's time to drain it again. Alright, I'm back. I let the welder run for a little bit, just with the distilled water. Time to drain it out. I went ahead and let it fill a different container so that we could actually see what the water that's coming out is looking like. So I have a new plan with this welding machine. I don't know if you guys can hear it in the videos, but it sounds like there's some sort of like a knocking or something metallic, and it sounds like it's coming from the coupling between the engine and the generator. So I would like to dig into that, but before we dig into that, we're going to continue flushing the engine / radiator, and doing so we're going to run it and continue flushing either until that comes out clean or until we run out of fuel. You may be able to see down in there that little copper nozzle. That is our pickup for the fuel. You can see we do not have very much fuel left until we drop below that, before we drop below that level. So I guess we'll see where we can get today. Uh-oh. Looks like somebody forgot to close the petcock. We are about full on the radiator, so I'll get back with you guys whenever it's time to drain again. I let the engine run for a little bit. Let's go ahead and drain the water, see if it's starting to clear up. Well, we ran it out of fuel. Let's go ahead and drain out what's left in the radiator and see how much progress we made with flushing. So some of this may have a little bit of a yellow tint to it. I did add some 50-50 mix that I had laying around. Alright, I got a clean container so that way we can see what kind of progress we made. Yeah, it looked good from the beginning, but definitely still very rusty looking. Next video, I would like to separate the engine and the generator to get down to the root cause of that noise that I'm hearing, as well as get into some wiring. You can see these wires aren't attached to that high idle solenoid. I tried to do a little bit of troubleshooting off camera, but there's all kinds of wires that go from here and then they run up to the board, and there's some that run on the back of the engine. So I forgot to mention, but I'll throw up on screen a video. I recently purchased a takeoff air canister as well as the bracket with that high idle solenoid. I found that on eBay. After searching for a really long time, I was really grateful to come across that. As well as that, we have, you already saw the new air filter that I just have bungeed on there, but I have a new belt. And then there's our thermostat and gasket, and then here's our fuel filter. Throughout the course of this video, I noticed that I was getting some oil coming out of right here. You may be able to see in the bottom tray how we have that oil and on the side of the engine block. I went ahead and replaced both these gaskets. I said we were going to hold off on that because of the fork having that temporary fix, but I looked inside of here and both of the pins that I twisted are still upright, so I'm going to go ahead and hold off on that for now. If you made it to the end of the video, I would like to thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Stay tuned for part 3, and remember, no matter what you do, do it for the glory of God.